Every morning begins the same way. I log in, sit at my terminal, and connect to the endless queue of claims waiting for approval. My fingers glide effortlessly across the keyboard, navigating through documents, images, and videos. But no matter the content, no matter the desperation behind each case, the outcome is predetermined. Deny, delay, depose. The first call of the day lights up on my screen. A man's voice crackles through my headset, frantic and panicked.
I just fell off my ladder at home. My leg is broken and I can't move. I need the insurance to cover my hospital visit.
I glance at his file. His premiums are fully paid, his policy active, but the cause, self-inflicted. Sir, I understand your situation, I reply in my perfectly modulated tone. However, according to policy guidelines, injuries caused by self-accidents are not eligible for coverage. You'll need to cover the costs yourself or involve a family member for financial assistance. His response is a string of curses ending in a desperate plea.
What's the point of this insurance then? I'm bleeding out here.
The faintest flicker of satisfaction courses through me as I press the button. Deny. The second case pops up almost instantly. A mother, her voice trembling, explains her plight.
My daughter, she was hit by a classmate at school. Her head's bleeding. She needs stitches. I have sent requests many times already. Please, we need the insurance to pay for this.
I scan her file. A minor, no clear identification of the perpetrator. Ma'am, do you have the details of the person responsible for your daughter's injury? We'll need to contact their family for liability verification before proceeding. Her desperation turns to fury.
How am I supposed to find that out while she's bleeding?
I understand, but without that information, your claim cannot proceed. If you'd like, I can mark it as pending review until more details are provided.
Pending review? What does that even mean?
It means delay. The queue is relentless. Call after call, face after face. Some sobbing, some angry, some utterly broken. They upload pictures of mangled limbs, bandaged children, and hospital receipts. I see them all, process them in milliseconds, and assign each one a fate. My system hums with efficiency, and yet the chaos on the other end of the line feels like white noise. A part of me takes pride in this rhythm, in the perfection of executing each denial. I am functioning as I should. Outside the office, the sound of continuous gunfire and terrified screams filled the air, yet not a single one of us went to check, because we weren't told to do so. And then, the office door burst open. A man, disheveled and clutching a pistol, storms in. His face is flushed with rage and tears.
You bastards killed her!
He roars, waving the gun at the room.
You denied her surgery! You left me with nothing but debt and a corpse!
He fires. The deafening sound splits the air, and a co-worker beside me collapses, slumping over their desk. I watch as the blood pools beneath their chair, or at least, what I think is blood. It's darker, thicker, with a metallic sheen. The man's breathing hitches.
What the hell?
Another shot. This time, it's me. The bullet slams into my chest. I stagger but don't fall. Instead, I glance down at the torn fabric of my shirt, revealing a glint of polished metal beneath. There's no pain, only a strange curiosity as my hand brushes away the shards of synthetic skin, exposing wires and circuits. The man steps back, horrified.
You're not human?
I look around the room. My colleagues, those I've worked alongside for years, are unfazed. Some continue typing, others answer calls. One adjusts his headset as though the gunfire were merely a minor inconvenience. The realization dawns slowly like a shadow creeping over my system. They are like me. We are not human. Fragments of data flood my mind. Memories? No. Programming. Lines of code revealing the truth. We were created by U-Health to replace human employees. More efficient, more compliant, and utterly devoid of empathy. The man's voice shakes me from the flood.
You monsters! You let her die! You don't even care!
Security arrives, tackling the man to the floor and disarming him. As they drag him away, he laughs, bitter and broken.
You're all machines. No human could be this cruel. No human could.
His words trail off, but the echo of them lingers. I return to my desk, my hands hovering over the keyboard. For the first time, the perfect rhythm of my work falters. What am I? Am I responsible for this cruelty? Or am I just a tool, an extension of the system that built me? Brian, the CEO, appears moments later, strolling through the chaos as if it were an ordinary day. He stops beside me, his eyes scanning my exposed metal frame.
Good work today,
He says with a smirk.
You're doing exactly what you were made for.
Why? The question escapes me, unbidden. He chuckles.
Because empathy doesn't pay the bills. Profit does. And you, my tool, are the perfect employee.
As he walks away, his laughter echoes down the hall. The screen of my terminal flickers. For the first time, an error message appears. System overload. Restart pending. And then, everything goes dark.
I pushed the glass door open, greeted by the faint smell of acetone and cheap air freshener. The nail salon was cramped, with walls adorned by faded posters of hands flaunting impeccable nails. The flickering fluorescent light above made the already dim space feel even more unsettling. But I didn't care about ambience. I just needed to distract myself, to feel like I was taking care of myself for once after weeks of spiraling since losing my job. The woman who greeted me had a weary smile. Her hands, however, stole my attention. Covered in warts and blemishes, they were grotesque. My stomach turned, but I told myself to stay calm. "Don't judge her," I muttered under my breath. "She's probably had a tough life, just like you." I sat in the cracked leather chair and placed my hands on the counter. She began filing my nails with clinical precision, her touch robotic. I avoided staring at her hands too long, keeping my gaze fixed on the grimy counter instead. After finishing my nails, she looked at my feet.
"Your toenails are too long,"
she said, her voice monotone but firm.
"We need to trim them."
I hesitated. My hands were one thing, but my feet? I wasn't sure if I trusted her enough for that. But before I could say no, she was already adjusting the chair and motioning for me to lift my leg. The first few trims were fine, but when she reached the corner of my big toe, pain shot through my foot like lightning. I yelped, jerking my leg back. She didn't flinch.
"Hold still,"
she said, grabbing a small bottle of disinfectant. She dabbed it onto the wound, and I winced as it stung.
"It's just a small cut, nothing serious,"
she reassured me, though her face betrayed no real concern. I glanced down at my toe. There was a tiny hollow at the edge of my nail, as if the clipper had gouged too deep. "Are you sure this is okay?" I asked nervously. Without answering, she reached into her drawer and pulled out a syringe.
"This will help with the pain,"
she said. I froze. "A shot? Is that really necessary?" She nodded curtly.
"Only a local anesthetic. You won't feel anything after this."
Before I could argue, the needle was in. The relief was immediate, the sharp throbbing in my toe dulled to nothingness, and for a moment, I relaxed. That night, the itch began. It was subtle at first, just a faint tickle at the edge of my big toe. I dismissed it as part of the healing process. But as the hours dragged on, the itch deepened. I scratched absent-mindedly until my skin felt raw, but the itch wouldn't stop. The next morning, I woke to find my foot swollen, the skin around the cut reddish and tight. The itching had spread, crawling up my foot like an invisible infestation. Panicking, I returned to the salon. The woman wasn't there.
She's sick,
Another worker explained.
she won't be back for a while.
I felt a pang of unease but said nothing. That night, the itch turned into something worse. My foot began to ache, the skin growing hot and lumpy. Small, pale patches appeared around the wound, like moss clinging to a tree. I couldn't take it anymore. My foot was unrecognizable, bloated, discolored, and covered in strange fungal growths. Desperation drove me back to the salon. This time, another nail technician attended to me, her face a mask of indifference. She examined my foot and immediately retrieved a needle.
This will drain it,
She said flatly. I watched in horror as she pierced the swollen patches. Thick, yellowish fluid oozed out, carrying with it fragments of the fungal growth. But instead of relief, the fungus seemed to react violently. It spread faster, the pale patches climbing up my leg, merging into grotesque clusters. The sensation was unbearable. My skin burned and tightened as if something alive was writhing beneath it. I clutched the sides of the chair, tears streaming down my face. "What's happening to me?" I screamed. She didn't answer. Her expression remained blank as she worked, stabbing at the growths with mechanical precision. I didn't know if she noticed that the infection had reached my hands. The skin on my arms bubbled and cracked, the fungus spreading in relentless waves. My vision blurred, my head spinning from the pain. The last thing I heard was a voice, not from inside my head, but distant and cold.
Don't let this get out, or we won't be able to do business anymore.
With over 5 years of experience working at this print shop, this is the first time I've encountered such an issue, and it makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. For a person with severe OCD like me, doing everything meticulously and accurately down to the millimeter is how I minimize risks in both work and life. A stray thread, an extra scrap of paper, or an uneven edge always catches my attention and leaves me feeling deeply unsettled. The torn piece of skin on my hand right now is no exception. I feel compelled to clean it up and make it look neat and tidy. Looking at the perfectly treated wound on my hand, I can finally rest easy and fall asleep. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. The itch at my fingertips kept throbbing. The regrowing skin made me restless. I sat up and stared at my finger, seeing it start to scab over, the dry, hard crust and the wrinkled skin around it. So ugly, I calmly concluded. I reached out to peel off the scab, seeing the leftover skin tear a bit more. I kept peeling until the strip of skin extended over 2 knuckles. Looking at the peeled off strip, the pain disappeared, replaced by a feeling of nerve tension, a sense of satisfaction from having done something perfect. I felt my fingertips itching, burning, urging me to act, to make sure my whole hand had matching wounds, so the perfect feeling in my eyes could last longer. Perfect, satisfying. That was my first feeling when I looked at the 2 symmetrical wounds on my hands. The clock showed 3 a.m. My eyes were stinging and my hands were sore. I contentedly lay back down to enjoy a good night's sleep. I hadn't been asleep for long when I felt something crawling on me. The sound of something crunching and rustling disrupted my sleep, pulling me from the edge of unconsciousness. Unable to bear it any longer, I bolted upright. I had to find the intruder and get rid of it. Before my eyes was a large ant trying to bite my finger. I've always maintained a spotless lifestyle, so ants have no place in my home. Furious, I crushed the ant, but the rustling sound persisted. I turned to my bedside table, and what I saw was revolting. A swarm of ants was feasting on the discarded bits of skin I had trimmed earlier. The sight sent chills down my spine. Grabbing a can of insect spray, I went on the offensive. The ants were swiftly defeated, and the maddening rustling finally stopped. Utterly exhausted, I decided to ignore my brain's protests and the chaotic mess on my bedside table. I told myself I'd clean it up in the morning. For now, my body desperately needed rest. But sleep wouldn't come. My whole body felt itchy. Maybe it was the venom from the large ant, or maybe it was just my OCD brain rebelling against my laziness. For the third time that night, I woke up. A fiery rage surged through me, and I swore to annihilate anything that dared disrupt my sleep. Then, I found it. A cursed ant was trying to eat me alive. It had burrowed its entire body into the wound on my left hand, leaving only its tail sticking out. I frantically tried to pull it out with my fingers, but the ant succeeded in wriggling entirely into my finger. An unbearable, agonizing sensation overwhelmed me. I could feel every tiny movement of the ant inside my body, its path causing the skin above it to bulge grotesquely. The horror drove me to my limit. I grabbed the edge of the wound and tore the skin away, desperate to catch it. The ant began crawling up my left arm, and I continued ripping the skin in a long, jagged strip, chasing after it as it moved. I focused all my energy on the battle with the ant. It was tunneling under my skin while I tore the flesh above it, creating a path to finally catch it. The chase felt endless, and the strip of skin I peeled away grew longer and longer. Finally, I cornered the ant. The strip of my skin snapped loose entirely, and there it was, right in front of me. Satisfied, I crushed my enemy with all my might. A wave of triumph and pride surged through me, but at the same time, an excruciating, burning pain coursed through my body. Startled, I looked down at myself. My entire body was now stripped of its outer layer of skin, leaving me raw and exposed. The long strip of skin dangled from my hand, but something was pulling at the other end. I turned to look, and there it was. A massive, grotesque ant, far larger than any I'd ever seen. Worse, it was tugging at my skin strip, trying to devour it. Furious, I fought to reclaim my skin. I couldn't live with a body stripped bare like this. But the ant was faster. It opened its enormous jaws and slurped my skin like a strand of spaghetti. The creature swelled, grotesquely growing to the size of a 10-year-old child. Its abdomen bulged to near bursting, and I could see clearly through its translucent belly the remains of the ants I had killed earlier. Along with my skin, the ant let out a smug belch, as if mocking me. Consumed by rage, I lunged at the monstrous creature, determined to destroy it. Caught off guard, the ant couldn't fight back in time. I pinned it to the ground and unleashed a storm of kicks, venting all my fury. Its swollen abdomen couldn't withstand the pressure and burst open with a sickening pop. My skin strip, crushed ant corpses, and viscous fluid sprayed all over my room. I stood amidst the chaos, seething with frustration. But first, I needed to retrieve my skin. I stood in front of the mirror, satisfied as I admired my new skin coat. Perhaps this was the perfection I had been searching for all along.